How often is it that you've heard the example that Soul Calibur is an oversexualized series because of Ivy? Or that, why aren't there enough modest gaming heroines? I mean, just look at Ivy. It always seems to be Ivy. Isabelle Valentine uses an example that games are either sexist or oversexualized. And too often I hear people say that, like, the Soul Calibur series is known for its oversexualization. You know, looking at the character Ivy, you can see blah blah blah. And what bothers me about this example is often people say that, yeah, Ivy's really sexualized. I mean, I don't know why there can't be more modest characters or whatever. Yes, completely ignoring Hild, completely ignoring Talim, completely ignoring the rest of the female cast. Because obviously Ivy's the elephant in the room and we have to just, you know, make a point of that and completely ignore the rest of the characters without even, I don't know, looking. Now see, the problem with the Ivy example to me is we're easy to pick out the one that's the problem, or is a problem to some people, completely ignoring the ones that are fine or fit within the description of what might be modest or whatever. For example, Hild has full armor on, she is like a soldier and everything, and that's why you can't see absolutely anything. Whereas Talim's clothes are less modest, she's not exactly ridiculous, and so on. You can look at the rest of the Soul Calibur female cast to just look at comparison. And funnily enough, like, Ivy may be sexualized or whatever, but the one with, you know, the biggest chest isn't even Ivy, it's Taki, and yet Taki probably has the most clothes on because he's a ninja. And yet nobody uses that example because what can you make? Oh, well, they're ridiculous, so blah blah blah, realism, because obviously realism has everything to do with fantasy. The next example I see is, well, if this is a sword-based fighting game, I don't understand how, you know, what she's wearing can protect her from attacks, like, that's not much armor. Yes, because obviously Killick is fully armored, and so is Maxi. You know, so is Yun Sung, Mr. Shirtless Wonder. All these characters are fully armored, obviously able to withstand piercing blades and so on. So this example bothers me because, as I said, we're basically taking this one character, Ivy, using it to overgeneralize. And the reason why this example annoys me is because we're completely ignoring other characters. To list other fighting games, you know, for every Tina, we've got a Lei Fang. For every Mei Fang, we've got a Heart Ano, right? For every Cammy, we've got a Chun-Li. Because too often people are like, man, when's Cammy gonna wear pants? Why do fighting game girl characters always have to be like that? Yes, because obviously everyone looks like that. Completely ignoring Chun-Li, who, mind you, was the first female Street Fighter character, and yet we're gonna blow up Cammy, but we're gonna ignore the rest. And the second part of it is people might say, oh, well, they're over-sexualized and they're objects and blah blah blah. I'm like, you know, the whole thing about objectification is a funny thing to me because people say that, yet I feel like we aren't looking at the bigger picture, and by that I mean you say that they're put in there to be objects in Oogle or whatever. If that were the case, if that were true, that they were literally just put in there for that purpose and nothing else, then yes, I'd agree, but that's never the case. Almost never, in fact. See, even Ivy, the persistent Ivy example, she's got a story. She's got personality. She's got a character. Obviously, yes, she looks great, but that's not the only reason people are playing her. In fact, let's not forget, this is a fighting game. If you picked up Soul Calibur 5 and you've been a big fan of Ivy, you're not thinking, oh my god, dude. No, you're thinking, okay, what are my options with Ivy? She's got good range, ridiculous mix-ups, some nasty unblockable setup. Yeah, I'm in there. You know, the people who use Ivy are using her as a fighting game character. Obviously, looks are a part of it, and you can customize that in certain games. You know, same with DOA, the bigger elephant in the room. All these characters have stories and personalities. They're not all the same. They don't all have the same cup size. They're not all the same, you know, person. They're not all the same cookie-cutter personality, one-track minded. I mean, look at my character Helena. Like, she's a really strong fighter, really confident, a huge part of the story because she owns Doatech. And while the story of DOA 5 might not be the most coherent story, there is at least a story there. So when people say stuff like, you know, they're objects, that bothers me. Of course there's the whole beach volleyball game, but let's be fair about something. I look at that game like a Dojin game. Yes, it's an official game published by Tecmo, but it's not canon. It's not part of the main series. I look at that game as like a fan fiction project. Like, what would happen if the DOA girls just went on a beach and did silly stuff? Like, if you take that game seriously, then you're missing the point. That game's not meant to be serious. It's meant to take these characters who, mind you, 90% of the time are just beating the snot out of each other. Now they're just gonna be like, yeah, tournament's over, let's have fun. Like, it's ridiculous, it's absurd, and it serves its purpose, because it is fan service. But, is it canon? No. And even if it isn't canon, do these characters' personalities fall apart because suddenly they're in bikinis and they're doing silly stuff? Not really, and I think that's something that people can't seem to get over with the female characters, in fiction, mind you. It's like, if they're doing something that objectifies, quote-unquote, themselves, then they can't be taken seriously as characters. And I find that it's very annoying, because I'm not going to say the whole, well, men objectify too. I find it like, wait, so a character can't be sexy and strong? Like, they can't do stuff and, like, go crazy? I mean, even though, like, Bayonetta is a silly parody game that's meant to kind of make fun of the whole sexualization thing, that game kind of had the right idea of, this character is ridiculous, this character is a tease, this character is over the top, but look how strong she is. And that's amazing to me, because it's like, you know, why can't you do both? I mean, look at all the guy characters with the ridiculous, impossible muscles going crazy all the time. You'd think that they probably, like, rupture something just by moving, because of, like, all those muscles would be, like, rubbing against each other. But no, I mean, let's not forget that this is fiction. So with the Ivy example, I feel like we're too quick to look at Ivy, and we're too, you know, easy to dismiss the rest of the characters. You know, for every sorceress, there's an elf. But what say you to the elf, other than, oh, but that my argument falls apart, question mark? Like, you know, it's like, unless you'd say, oh, all they are, you know, if only all the characters were like the elf. But is that really fair? Because, and I don't mean fair in the sense of, like, equality or whatever. I mean in the sense of, like, why should we all, you know, why should, you know, designers, you know, artists conform to one person's vision? See, a lot of video games have more body diversity than people give it credit for. Just look at the DOA cast. Yes, it's ridiculous. Yes, they've got ridiculous proportions, but they're not all exactly the same. They're not all like, you know, cookie cutters of each other. They all have different body types, just as the guys have different body types. And with Dragon's Crown, you know, you've got the elf, who's got, obviously, like, you know, she's small, she's a archer and all that. You've got the sorceress, who obviously is ridiculous, and she is a, well, sorceress. And then you've got the Amazon, who's got ridiculous legs, because obviously she runs fast and she attacks with them, and so on. So it's done for a purpose. So there's a lot more body diversity, but people will point out the bad ones and not the good ones. And I feel like sometimes the scrutiny is just absurd. Like, even the new Tomb Raider, the new Lara Croft, she's way more modest than Lara Croft's in the past, and I feel like that game focuses way more on how she comes to be, like, the killing machine that she is, and yet people would still be like, her butt's too big, her boobs are too big, you know, it's like, and that to me is annoying. It's, so we can't have fit characters in our games. I mean, I can't wait till the day that, you know, we start making all, because, you know, whining has reached an all-time high, we start making every female character look like the female characters from Attack on Titan. And while that's a perfectly okay thing, I really don't see how that's fair to body types, because to me, the cookie cutter body type is the one where every girl looks the same, not the one where the body types are diverse. Some of them are voluptuous, some of them aren't. So the next time you try to use Ivy as an example, at least, you know, get your facts straight. At least understand that Soul Calibur has body diversity. At least understand that most fighting games, if not all, do have body diversity. And before anybody says that, you know, it's oversexualized because of this one character, then, you know, let's not forget that in the real world there are people like that. Some who do have that disposition, who do have that look, and others who don't. And I feel like games, believe it or not, try to emulate that more than people give them credit for. So just think about that for a second before we start dissing Ivy as this object without any personality and purpose. Because quite frankly, when I hear somebody say that they're an object and they're objectified, I think that's more insulting than the game designers designing her that way. So think about it.